A controversial lyricist with a biting sense of humor, Eminem is one of the best-selling hip-hop artists of his time.
When Eminem hit, he hit really big.
He sold 1.7 million copies his first week.
But before the fame, he endured a hard-knock, lone parent childhood and nearly died in a playground incident.
It seemed like he was going to have permanent nerve damage.
His life has been a non-stop battle against rap rivals, against angry protesters.
2, 4, 6, hit, Eminem is full of hate.
In an age of political correctness, this guy is like a nuclear bomb.
And against his own family.
She said to him that she wished that Eminem was dead and not Ronnie.
Until he finally conquered the world of hip-hop.
And it's controversial. People wanted to make him. His talent always stood out. That's what makes a great artist.
I don't feel like I have to compromise my style for nobody.
By 1997, Eminem had spent nearly a decade trying to make a name for himself in the cutthroat world of hip-hop, with little success. He was 25, unemployed, homeless, and had a one-year-old child to support. On the night of the 27th of October 1997, Eminem was given a chance to prove his skills in a tough hip-hop battle called the Rap Olympics.
Rap Olympics is a big event that this hip-hop activist Wendy Day started in LA.
It was a competition where MCs got together, the best of the best, to put their so-called freestyle skills to the test.
The winner would receive $500 and an imitation Rolex. But Eminem's financial situation had become so desperate, even this meager prize meant everything to him.
He really needed to win. He needed the money. He wanted to be able to hawk the Rolex in order to live for another couple of weeks. I'm sure to him it was a make-or-break kind of thing.
As a white interloper in the field of mostly African-American contenders, Eminem was decidedly out of place.
He was, a skinny white boy from Detroit. The reaction was sort of like, oh, come on.
Then he stepped up to the mic.
When he delivers, I think people were stunned. It didn't take that long before they could see what he had.
Within 30 seconds, they knew. Yeah, he was the crowd favorite.
He'd won over the crowd that night, but Eminem would walk away with an unexpected prize.
Damn! Eminem! Eminem!
It wasn't the first time Eminem had faced tough odds. His entire life had been a series of hard-fought battles. He was born Marshall Bruce Mathers III on October the 17th, 1972, in the quiet Missouri town of St. Joseph. His surroundings may have been peaceful, but his upbringing wasn't.
The basic story about Eminem's childhood that everyone knows is that he didn't have a very good one. His mom was very young when she had him, that he came from a marriage that was short-lived and abusive.
Debbie Nelson was just 15 when she married 19-year-old mill worker Marshall Bruce Mathers Jr. in 1970. Soon after baby Marshall was born, Debbie left her husband, claiming his behavior was erratic and abusive. For the next few years, she and her young son lived a transient life all over the Midwest, finally landing in inner-city Detroit. In his teens, Marshall had found expression in hip-hop music, and in fellow rap fanatic Deshaun Holton, known to friends as Proof, Eminem found his perfect partner in rhyme. Eminem's love for rap was matched by another obsession, Kim Scott.
Eminem and Kim started as teenagers, very young.
She's blonde, she's kind of tall. She's not exotic or famous or anything like that. She's just like an around-the-way girl,
I think Eminem said that he was dancing on a table with his shirt off, and she walked in, and he was like, oh my God, she's incredible.
When Kim and Marshall got together, they have serious chemistry, Whether you want to call it love is one thing, and they definitely fell pretty hard for each other. Aside from Proof and, writing rhymes, he didn't have a lot else in his life. Now, at that time, his relationship with his mom was really disintegrating.
Kim was there as Marshall's relationship with his mother, Debbie, became more unstable.
If he got kicked out, then I would walk the streets with him until he found some place to live. Or if I got kicked out, he was always there for me. There was always just a close connection.
It's tough to say what was really going on with Debbie and Marshall. It was very adversarial. And I think this was a time when she was pretty much out of work. His version is that she had a string of sort of bad news boyfriends. She was collecting welfare and popping a lot of pills and things like that. Her version is that he's always been brought up in like a nicotine, alcohol, and drug-free home, and that she was always a great mother. Proof said they just never really knew what was going to happen with Debbie. One day they'd come home and she would like come in with groceries and make all of his friends dinner and be like a real great mom. Then another day she would like slam open the door and kick everyone out, including Marshall, and like throw his clothes out the window.
It's not like she abandoned him and blew off the family. She was a single mother, struggling to be able to pay the bills, struggling to be able to keep them together.
As tensions in the Mathers household mounted, on the 13th of December 1991, Marshall received devastating news.
Ronnie, his uncle, who he was close to, he died very young, before he was 20.
Ronnie killed himself over a breakup. He had his heart broken, and he just couldn't take it anymore.
I think that was really devastating for him. He was the one older male in his life that he believed in and he trusted, and it actually opened up the world to him. And when Ronnie committed suicide, I think it just really cut his feet out from under him.
Jim was just so broken up, he stayed in bed. He couldn't go to the funeral back in Missouri, but his mom went to the funeral, called him, and they got into this heated argument over the phone.
Debbie said on the phone to him that she wished that EMINՒM was dead and not Ronnie.
That was pretty much the straw that broke the camel's back between the two of them. And the relationship fracture really hasn't ever been the same since then.
You know, a lot of pain, a lot of rejection. Remember I asked him, in your childhood, who loved you? And he kind of struggled to think of who that was.
Age 19, after failing 9th grade 3 years in a row, Marshall dropped out of school and found work in a local restaurant. Tensions with his mother left him alienated in his own home, until Proof welcomed him to a new home in the heart of Detroit's hip-hop underground.
Maurice Malone, who is a clothing designer, had a store called the Hip Hop Shop. And not only did he sell clothing that he designed out of there, on the weekends he would have hip-hop battles.
Every Saturday, clear out the store, move all the clothes out. We would open up the mic and let the kids do their thing. The mic controller MC was usually Proof.
Somebody would start to rhyme and somebody else would challenge them.
Your job was to make fun of the way he looks, and make fun of his flow.
And it was a competitive thing, so if you won last week and the following week you come back, you're the winner, you're the one to beat.
When Proof invited EMINÜM to the Saturday night battles, it gave the 23-year-old white kid from Missouri much-needed clout in a skeptical crowd.
His friendship with Proof really validated him within the hip-hop scene in Detroit. He needed someone who was African-American to give him a foundation.
Having spent much of his young life in conflict with one person or another, Marshall was a natural at these wars of words.
When you have that in your background, when you're in a battle with somebody and you actually have a constructive place to send your feelings, you're going to be a beast to them.
But his early efforts at amateur freestyle contests were anything but auspicious.
His style at that time was a tongue-twister style of rapping where you rap so fast, just put as many words as you can in a phrase or whatever, and he was falling off beat sometime, and the crowd didn't like it, and they booed him off.
Now the beat cut off and he's still rapping.
Undeterred, EMINÜM came back week after week to perfect his craft.
Him didn't talk much. He had his personality. He'd just come in, who's this little quiet white guy, and then he'd get on the mic and start ripping people apart.
He soon learned how to win over a hostile crowd with humor and developed his singular brand of rap rhetoric that would make him a freestyle champion.
That's my motherfucking dog.
The hip-hop shop wasn't just a training ground. For young Marshall Mathers, whose real home had failed him in so many ways, it became a second home. Meanwhile, his family life was growing more complicated. On Christmas Day 1995, Kim gave birth to Marshall's daughter, Haley Jade. 23-year-old Marshall was overjoyed, but fatherhood brought new struggles.
Once he knew he was going to be a father, that definitely changed him. He doubled up on his work schedule.
He was working all these jobs, trying to write rhymes, pounding the pavement, promoting himself.
In 1996, it looked like Marshall Mathers' luck might have changed.
He got on a local station. They were letting local rappers just freestyle.
These local producers heard him and were like, hey, there's something kind of interesting here.
Called the station right away and asked to speak to him, wanted to know who that kid was, and ended up inviting him down to their studio.
They produced what became his first sort of recorded album, Infinite.
Infinite was sort of his demo tape that ended up getting pressed up as an actual record. Was a local regional release. These are not fully fleshed out, fully developed songs.
They had no money, they had no time. I don't think he had any idea really what he wanted to say.
The lyrics were like, oh, I find myself in God, and God is going to save me from my little Caesar's pizza job. I mean, it was crazy stuff.
Infinite hardly made EMINÄM an overnight success. The album failed to sell even the 1,000 copies they'd pressed. But Marshall wasn't discouraged. Failure inspired him to create a new hip-hop alter ego. An alter ego that would turn him into a star. By 1996, EMINÄM's personal life was in turmoil. His relationship with his mother had completely broken down, and he and his girlfriend Kim were struggling to support their newborn daughter.
He was working as a cook. They were completely struggling just to get a house in a pretty bad part of town, like where they had a crackhead who broke in constantly and bullets came through the window a couple times, stuff like that. They were like barely making ends meet.
Although the 25-year-old was becoming a fixture on Detroit's hip-hop scene, his recording career was off to a slow start.
His first album, Infinite, had completely done nothing, and it wasn't working, and nobody cared, and the album bombed.
With work stalled and his personal life imploding, Marshall needed to do something. He created the hip-hop alter ego called Slim Shady.
Kick it.
It took the catalyst of all these pressures, forced him to figure out how to say what he really meant.
Slim Shady is the beast who says exactly what he wants and exactly what he feels and has no filter.
EMINÄM is the rapper, and Slim Shady is the id and the anger and the guy who wants to slit your throat, but he'll also make you fall down laughing at the same time.
EMINÄM introduced his new persona on 1996's Slim Shady EP, and no one was safe from his brutally personal attacks, including the love of his life.
The song Just the Two of Us takes this idea of a love song and twist that inside out and write about these horrible, grisly things.
He was having problems with Kim, and in his song he decides to put his baby daughter in the front seat and take her to the lake where he's going to dump her mother's body, who's currently in the trunk. Definitely different.
EMINÄM hoped the Slim Shady EP would attract fans and possibly the attention of a major label. It failed to do either and sold a mere 5,000 copies. But he did gain one important fan, Wendy Day, who had made a career of giving exposure and business advice to young hip-hop artists.
M's at a music conference in Detroit, and Wendy Day comes. She's in charge of the Rap Coalition. So she shows up, and M approaches her with this demo tape, and he kind of, hey, nice to meet you, here's my tape.
Got in the car, I popped his cassette in, got maybe halfway through the first song. It was just unbelievably good. I mean, that kid could rhyme ridiculously. And we actually made a U-turn across the median of the highway.
So she invited EMINÄM to come down to LA and participate in the Hip Hop Olympics, which was